Bonjour, good afternoon. My name is Catherine Loubier and I'm Quebec's Delegate General in New York. It's an honor to welcome two highly accomplished, respected, and formidable women in the energy field, Carolyn Kissane and Sophie Brochu. Welcome to this fireside chat. Often referred to as a blue province, because of its low carbon footprint, Quebec is a longtime partner of the climate group. We share the goal to fight climate change, including as a leader in hydropower and wind power. And once again this year, we're very proud to participate in Climate Week. In my role as Delegate General, I'm extremely proud to wear the badge of Quebec Partner for Decarbonization with our allies across the US. And New York City and state are setting up the bar high on their path to decarbonizing the economy. We as trusted friends and partners have the available resources to continue to help them reach their goals. Now let me introduce our distinguished panelists. Appointed in April 2020 as the first female CEO, Sophie Brochu brings over 30 years of experience in the energy sector to her new role as head of Hydro Québec, the largest generator of renewable energy in North America. In '97, she joined Énergir, formerly Gaz Métro, the largest natural gas distribution company in Quebec, where she held various senior positions, including an amazing run as president and CEO from 2007 to 2019. A seasoned manager renowned for her human and unifying leadership style, she's also very active in the community, particularly with organizations involved in youth, women, and underprivileged people. What's more, Sophie is a trailblazer who has literally smash the energy gender glass ceiling. She's a role model for so many women in Quebec. Welcome to New York virtually, Sophie. Dr. Carolyn Kissane, amazing talent, insightful knowledge, and communication skills make her an influential voice in academic and energy circles that resonates in the United States and abroad. She serves as academic director of the graduate program in global affairs at the Center of Global Affairs of New York University, And she's a clinical associate professor where she teaches the geopolitics and energy, comparative energy politics, environment and resource security, and teaches a regional course focusing on Central Asia. She was named Breaking Energy's Top 10 New York Women in Energy and Top 10 Energy Communicator, and she hosts Fueling Our Future, an energy series she moderates. Carolyn serves on the boards of New York Energy Forum, New York Energy Week, and the Clean Start Advisory Board. Dr. Kissane received her PhD from Columbia University. To top it off, she has shown her interest in Canada and Quebec and has led several university student groups to our great country. It's a great pleasure to see you again, Carolyn. I will now pass the floor over to you to get this fireside chat underway. Now that I've lit the fire, let's have a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you so much for that very generous and warm introduction. I am absolutely delighted to be here today, thrilled to have the opportunity to be in conversation with Sophie Brochu. Sophie, congratulations on your becoming CEO of Hydro Québec. It is truly a tremendous, testament to everything that you've done in your career and everything that you will do. So I'm really, just as I said, really delighted and grateful for this opportunity. And I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the Quebec Government Office in New York, an extraordinary team. And I think when you look at what they are doing this week during Climate Week, they are very much at the forefront in telling the really powerful narrative of what is happening in Quebec and how Quebec is a partner for New York. And that, they have been a partner for over, for the last century. So really delighted to be part of, today's event that they're partnering with the Center for Global Affairs. And I'd also just like to quick follow up before we jump into the conversation. Catherine mentioned the partnership that we've had with Quebec. And in 2013, actually, along with Michelle D'Amico, we took a group of students up to Quebec as part of a course, Polar Politics. We're actually looking at issues around the Arctic. Phenomenal experience. Gary Sutherland, who's with Hydro Québec, also took the time to meet with our students. And then in 2016, I actually had a very unique opportunity to go up to James Bay and visit one of Hydro Quebec's major facilities. So this is, you know, very close to me. And as I said, just really thrilled to have this chance today. So with that, let's jump into to the conversation. So Sophie, you know, hydropower is, you know, is recognized as renewable energy, and it's considered a very important source of energy for many different regions of the world. And it is a source of energy that's also a big part of kind of the conversation that's happening here in New York. However, it's not without some controversies. And, you know, I'd like to maybe start off with, you know, how you see, you know, how Canadian hydropower is, how it impacts, or what are some of the implications for Indigenous communities in Canada? And, you know, how do you respond, or how is, you know, Hydro Quebec responded to the issues of displacement of communities, and to some of the ecosystem damage that that sometimes results from hydro projects?
Okay, well, good day to you, Carolyn, and I say good day to all of you who are listening. We're happy to see New York back on its feet. I can tell you that we're many Quebecers who were praying the universe for you to be better. Carolyn, you're touching on many, many points, and I would like to start, and I will try to cover them all. I would like to start and piggyback upon your experience going at Bay James. The first time I got up there was at the turn of the 1990s. I was at the James Bay, and I was invited as an energy executive along with other people that Hydro Quebec invited. Among them was the leadership of Con Edison. And I remember that we all arrived on site. We were 8. I remember that because we were 4 on one side and 4 on the other side anyway. And I was with the Con Ed guys. And we arrived there and we went in awe, then we went in silence. And the guy from Con Ed said, "It feels great to be a human being and knowing that we can do that." And it resonates still in my ear. I can hear his voice, and I'm sure this is how you felt. No energy source is perfect. Every energy source has merits and inconvenience. So when Quebec developed its hydroelectricity, frankly speaking, at the beginning, it was not meant for environmental reason. At the start, it was meant for economical reason, because you may know or not that Quebec is a vast territories. Actually, New York is about 0.5% of the space of Quebec. But actually, New York and the boroughs hold as many people as we have in Quebec. Most of our population is along the St. Lawrence River. And the reservoir that we have, the rivers and the lakes and all the big reservoirs are up there north. I'm saying this because the Indigenous people, most of them would live often in this northern part of their territory. So let me start by saying something that is very, very important to me and to Hydro Quebec. There was never displacement of population. And it breaks my heart. My English is not good, as you can see, but I know the resonate when you say displacement, the image that you have. And you it feels like Chinese displacement, you know, you're going there. Never happened. When we had some dealings with some people, Indigenous people, we always had an agreement, and it was always if they wanted to move a little bit or not, that we would do so. So very, very, very remote from reality is the word displacement. Now, these are Indigenous communities like yours in the United States. And they've been here for a long, long, long time. And now a lot of discussions is being held between the Indigenous communities and our governments in Quebec, in Canada, because they want to be recognized and those are legitimate and they want to benefit from the economical development in their region and on their land. Actually, Hydro Quebec has over 40 agreements with various Indigenous communities in Quebec where we make sure at the start, before we start a new project, that we have thorough discussions with them about environment, about their hunting, about their fishing, about their way of lives, and we incorporate their comments into the designs of the project. And then as we build and as we operate, we make sure that in as much as we can, that we provide them with opportunities to be working in, within, around the development of the project or the operations. Are we perfect? No, we're not perfect. Are we way better than we were many decades ago? That's for sure. And we have the aspiration to be as good as possible in our relationships with them. Some communities have very strong leadership, very organized. Some other are more dispersed, and then it's more difficult, not because of them, not because of us, but because of the way they have been operating. Every single day, we talk to Indigenous communities, myself, our management team, our technical teams, and it's a great pride for me to host some of the Grand Chief there, or I go visit them, and I hear them talking about their aspiration for their kids, and we do our best to provide them the opportunity that they require. That's for the Indigenous part. Now, about the impact of reservoir. As I said, no energy is perfect. And energy, actually electricity, when you think about it, we seldom say that, but it's a manufactured product. Electricity is a manufactured product, and the specificity of it is that it uses another form of energy to get produced. So sometimes it's coal, it's oil, it's natural gas, it's wind, it's solar, or it's water. In the case of dams and creating reservoir, there are some issues that need to be taken care of, some very specific aspects. And when you look at the literature, the scientific literature is usually very, very good. Sometimes people are off though, because they would compare a reservoir that is being built up north with a reservoir that is being built in very warm or tropical weather. The actual emissions when you create a reservoir, you submerge and then there is life and it creates essentially carbon dioxide, much more than monoxide, carbon monoxide, which is very different than what you would see in the tropical regions. Does that create a little more emissions when it's implemented? The answer is yes, but we have scientific studies, proof, years and years and decades of studies, which shows that as time goes by, it goes back to where it was and actually can even go to less than what it was. So that's the impact of our reservoir here in Quebec, being built in the cold with the vegetation that we have. So actually, when you compare Quebec's reservoir and their impact, they're just about in the life cycle, they're just about where wind is. So I think it's a good space. Again, is it zero carbon? The answer is no, but it's very, very, very low carbon. And this is why it has become such frankly, a privilege, not because we are more intelligent than other people around us, but we are blessed with an hydrology that is very rich. And this is why it's been so good to us, both economically and environmentally speaking. And this is why, given the small population that we have, that we could say, we're going to keep that for ourselves and so be it. But a few decades ago, our predecessors talked to the people in the neighborhood markets, of which New York is, and say, let's exchange and let's see how we can pull together our resources. This is how New York has been fed with electricity from Quebec for over 100 years now. Kind of amazing. I did not realize that before I arrived at HQ, but I learned that.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for that very detailed and very candid response to my questions, because I know that, as I said, you know, some of those controversies do exist, but I think your explanation, and also in light of the sort of the zero carbon, right, that sometimes people immediately sort of associate hydro with zero carbon, but there is some carbon emissions, but as you explained, that in comparison to other clean energy sources, it's very comparable. So thank you for that. And also, I just want to say that was exactly your response when you saw St. James Bay was mine. I was in awe. I was speechless. It is such a, as an engineering feat of significance and everyone that was with me kind of very much felt the same way. So yeah, it's pretty tremendous. So on that, maybe, you know, how do you see sort of future potential for hydropower development in Quebec and maybe beyond?
Well, it's a very interesting question. The development of hydro facilities take a long time. Between the time you say might be a good idea to the time that the water flows and the power is produced might take easily 15 years. So you don't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to develop this and sell this and that. It doesn't go this way. So over the last, to give you just a feeling, over the last 15 years or 18 years, Hydro Quebec built quite a few facilities that represent about a little over 5,000 megawatts of capacity that was built over the last 15 years. And I think it's important to understand that at one point of time in the history of Hydro Quebec, I think it's 20 or 30 years ago, the law that governs Hydro Quebec was changed so that the vision that we had to develop the production capacity was behind the strict needs of Quebec. So what it allowed us is to create a larger optimization circle than what we would have done had we been only feeding ourselves. So there is a lot of pre-build in the history of Hydro Quebec, which allowed us to supply our own market, support the development of our own market, but also reaching out and offer energy to our neighboring markets on our side of the border or your side of the border, depending on their respective needs. The other thing that is very interesting to underline also is that in as much as we develop production capacity, we are determined and resolved to work on energy efficiency. And this is not small, Carolyn. And with our own little population over the last 15 years, we generated the equivalent, we saved the equivalent of 10 terawatt hours of energy. And to put that in perspective, this is the equivalent of the overall contract that we just signed with Massachusetts. So we're not only builders, we build when it's necessary, and we do that not only looking at ourselves, but the neighboring market, but we view ourselves as more as enablers. And in the enabling capacity that we have, suddenly comes the big reservoir. More and more state, provinces, country want to develop their own renewable energy sources. And so do you, and this is great. And you have superb ambition and you need to be acknowledged for that as a state. But it comes with a reality that it's intermittent. So the more you build intermittent renewable energy, the more you need a backup. And the backups that people think about spontaneously would be the batteries, either a small or larger scale. But you have a tremendous backup in your backyard in Quebec. This is the reservoir. And the backup we've been using ourselves, you know, to balance the contracts that we have between night and day, between weeks and weekends, between season and even between years. So the way to view Hydro Quebec, yes, we have energy, we have capacity, but we also have storage for you and to support your ambition so that you can go ahead, develop your own wind and solar resources and know that you have access to a battery that will firm up this beautiful renewable energy that you have. If you don't get access to this type of storage, you will live what Germany has gone through, where they developed wind, and all of a sudden they said, we need backup, and they backed it up with fossil fuels generation capacity, which goes, so we need to think all the way through all together, so we can supply energy, but we can also provide you with storage, and you need to view those reservoirs and those rivers just like your stuff, the thing that you can access to serve your own ambition. That's the way we view ourselves, not as energy pushers, you know, pushing and flooding the US Northeast. This is not our mental posture at all.
Yeah, I know it's interesting, your last point about Germany. I had students in Norway and Denmark, and one of the things that we heard a lot is how Norway serves as the green battery for parts of Europe and for example, Denmark, and that's Norway's hydropower that they then share, you know, which is a very integrated market. And that was actually a point that was made to us, is that that's also a backup for Germany's, you know, wind and solar. So it is a really critical part of energy access and resiliency. So I'm glad that you highlighted that point. So you spoke about New York. So we're going to kind of move south. We are, and many people on this Zoom today are probably very familiar with the Indian Point nuclear power plant, which is set to close next year. Lots of sort of questions about it, especially in light of New York's very ambitious climate reduction goals and its targets. And if, for example, hydropower or other sources of renewable energy do not come in more so into the mix, that could actually increase New York's reliance on fossil fuels, and which would undermine not only our fight against climate change, but also have impacts on the quality of our air and so many other things. So it's also something that's kind of, for those of us that are from New York, there are very few issues that Mayor de Blasio of New York City and Governor Cuomo of New York State agree on. But most recently, they have come to an agreement on hydropower. De Blasio was the first to really put his support behind Canadian hydropower supporting New York City. And then in May, Cuomo really came out in a really strong, quite a powerful way to show his support. I'm just going to read to you a quick quote. So he said that investing now in major infrastructure projects, including energy and transportation, would accelerate economic growth. Let's run the transmission lines from Canada to New York City and get that power down here, he said. Let's stop talking and let's start doing. So when you think about what it's going to mean to get hydropower into New York, I know there's been a long kind of a long period of debate and intense discussion over the Champlain-Hudson Express. Given the fact that there's now this sort of consensus by both the mayor and the governor that hydropower from Quebec is critical for New York's energy system, where do you see sort of the next 5 years in terms of how that connection is going to happen, the development of the transmission line, and what is it going to mean for New York and for Quebec?
Well, okay. Let me tell you something that might be a bit obvious, but I think it's very important. Environment is super important. So is economics and economical development. There will be a cost for the transition. Our responsibility is to reduce the GHG and do advance in this transition. But we have another responsibility, is to make it as low cost as possible. Nobody thrives in paying an electricity bill. People have way better things to do than to pay an electricity bill. So we need to do everything we do very resolved, environmentally speaking, and consciously from an economical standpoint. I'm saying this because we need to find the better ways to fade in, fade out. And you have the Indian Point nuclear facility that is going to shut down, and you have your own aspiration to build your own renewable resources. And I think New Yorkers can view Hydro Québec as a backfiller for the time that you build your own resources. But we need a line. We've built all those capacity that I've talked about, but for the last 30 years, we didn't build a line, a transmission line. Now, it's one thing to need the power, it's another thing to get it there. So we need to actually make a move, decide, and build that line together. Obviously, the connection that we will be having will vary through time. I am sure that the day this line will start flow electricity, the way it will flow will be different 5 years after and 5 years after, because your own reality will have budged and moved around. Our capacity and our job, frankly speaking, on this side of the border is to accompany you. But the governor is right, the mayor is right, we need to get going. And I think we've talked a lot, we've been dealing with this pandemic a lot, but we need to put our head on the ball and say, when one buck, we can work on two crises, the pandemic and the relaunch of the economy, and putting our starter blocks toward the goal that we have. So we need to get moving. Is everything going to be perfect? That's for sure, no. But I really believe that we've been talking a lot, legitimate, thinking things through. Now let's go, let's move. If we miss the next few months of decision making, if we miss the next few years where we can actually, okay, power can flow in 2025. If we miss 2025 and we're in 2030, frankly speaking, I don't know how we will collectively succeed in this transition. We need to get moving. We have this responsibility. And this is why, you know, moving with both the resolve and environment economics need to be put together. And other parts of the world are reasoning exactly like that. So let's do that. And we have so much brain around the table on your side of the borders. We have our capacity. Let's put our scientific together to deal with very scientific database issues. And let's put the business people and the energy people and the environmental people to work. Let's build that line.
Excellent. Well, I'm ready. So I know many people, many other people are also have been ready and are very eager to get started. Quick question on that though, would there be a need to build more dams to meet the energy supply of New York? Or does Hydro Quebec, in terms of its current reservoir, is that sufficient to add increased energy to New York?
No, we have the energy that is needed. And you need, again, to view Hydro Quebec as an aggregator of many ways to bring this additional energy to New York. We will build, we're building our own solar facilities right now. We're thinking about teaming up even more with independent wind producer. So I think you New Yorkers should have the level of comfort to say Hydro Quebec is able to bring more renewable power to New York City. We have the tools that are required to do that. It will be a mix of various tools. If and when the day comes that we need to build another dam in 20 or 30 years, that might come. But for the project that we're talking about, we have everything that we need in hand right now.
What would you identify as potentially the biggest obstacle to seeing this forward?
Time.
Time. Mm-hmm.
If we take too much time, obviously we need to get moving, and we need to find a way that the environmental attributes of hydropower is recognized in the U.S., is recognized in your neck of the wood. Again, you have your own energy. I view energy. I am a country girl, and I love vegetables and I love flowers. So it is, and I view energy as a bouquet. And I view New Yorkers are trying to put together this bouquet of local renewable energy and of complementary energies. So to the extent that we can find a way to fashionate a way to value hydroelectricity in its right fashion and its right contribution to the environment, I'm sure we can have, the ability to actually pay for the new line that will be there. If we don't, if the market does not recognize that hydroelectricity is really a formidable energy, environmentally speaking, it would be difficult. We cannot match in New York City the price of very, very low cost fossil fuels if we compare a fossil fuel and a renewable energy. But we can compare hydroelectricity to any renewable energy cost in your neck of the wood. So if we compare apple and apple, we can complement you economically and environmentally speaking. That's what we need.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you. It's going to be interesting. As you said, time is of the essence. So again, it's for those of us that are here in New York, it's really rare that you get de Blasio and Cuomo on the same page about something. So, so Hydro is something that they both see eye to eye on. So hopefully that will also help propel things forward.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of conversation and attention on energy companies around how they're addressing ESG issues, climate change. As a clean energy company, right? You're already doing quite a lot. But what else do you see is required from Hydro Quebec in terms of how they are addressing ESG issues and climate change?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, the challenge of reducing GHG emissions around the world is very much focused, for the obvious reasons, on decarbonizing the electricity production. This has been done in Quebec for historical reason. Again, not because that we were more brilliant, it's just that the geology that we had was water. So we are there, we're 99% there. Okay, so what's next in Quebec? So we view ourselves as a catalyst of possibilities, of the catalyst of the dreams of people that we can work with. And this is true on our side of the border and your side of the border. So starting from that standpoint is to say, what can we do as an entity to support scientific data? What can we do as an entity to support the electrification of transportation? And electrification of transportation is a huge enterprise with very complex intertwine of taxation, behavior change, support, some pricing of some behavior that are not wanted. So it's very complex societal issues. So what we view ourselves is, what can we be doing with, let's say that a student in Montreal goes to university, don't have a car yet, don't pay an electricity bill yet because they live together with their parents or whatever. What if they would have a card that allowed them to rent an electric car? The same card that would allow them to pay for the subway because the subway is electrical. The same card that would allow them to rent an electric bike in the city. What if, so this is not within the specific mandate of Hydro Quebec, but the people need us to be like the aggregator of other people who do various things but do not interconnect. And the interconnection is probably the biggest challenge of the energy transition, because we need to have those connections with the people, with the scientific, with the consumers, with the governments, with the city's mayor, with everybody. So we're trying to see, we're not saying we're the leader of the world. We're saying we can be part of any community, of any network of human beings that will become a network of electricity flow that will be clean and affordable. This is the way we view. Now, if you bring me back in my old industrial mission of a power utility, our next frontier is clearly hydrogen. We have clean electricity and we can produce clean hydrogen. There is a long way to go, but we'll go there. And who knows in New York, if you have access to clean electricity, that you will be able to produce your own clean hydrogen to support again the ambition and electrify with clean energy what would be otherwise a thermal use of electricity. And then we'll go a next frontier and into another dimension.
So there's actually a question that came through about Hydro Quebec's sort of strategy, how it's thinking about green hydrogen. Can you comment on that?
Well, hydrogen has been the topic for a long, long time. And I think that given where we are in the world, with the challenges that we have, given the whole scientific research, and you know better than I with all your PhD and all that, you know that scientific research has been on the topic. We believe that Quebec has a role to play in developing from the electrolysis of water, clean hydrogen. Hydrogen we must not view hydrogen as an end. It's a mean to something else. And when we view hydrogen as an end, it's rebuttal. I don't think we have the right mental posture. If we view it as an end to something else, and for us, yes, transportation is one thing, but also if you can electrify what would have been otherwise a thermal need, then it opens up quite a few possibilities with what we call the biocarburant, the biofuels. So we're going to play a role. We're going to invest. We're looking at various possibilities right now. We will want to demonstrate something that is of clout. Very humbling experience because it has never been done really. But I think we have everything that we need. And we would be delighted to share with you this experience. And frankly speaking, I would be delighted to see New York when and if you want to do that, to embark in your own green hydrogen pathway.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, also the issue of electrification is such a huge topic right now across the world, right? And that's, we're kind of moving into a very intense period of global electrification. And when I was up in Montreal and, traveling around Quebec, that was something that was really striking, is to see how deep electrification is across the whole province and the number of charging stations and just the fact that you are 99% clean energy with hydro and wind and biofuels, that opportunity to electrify is so built into the whole system.
And we have to do more. We have to do even more and to do better. And we are embarking into this new phase right now. Frankly, when we go to California and we see the development of electric vehicles in California, and you look at the way electricity is produced in California, you say, well, we should be able to do as much and even better than what they do in California, right? Because we have this clean electricity that then drives very clean cars. And we are working very hard with the public transit to electrify public transit in Montreal, among other things. And those are easy things to say, tough things to do. So you need to get resolved one at a time, and we are doing it, and we will succeed. And but it's not easy, and it's a humbling experience. Again, every territory, every community starts from a different starting point, and we need to advance within our own compound of issues. And New York is very different than Montreal. It has great advantages. You have this wind, this offshore wind capacity that is close to the city. Geez, you want to harness it. You want to harness solar, and this is what you need to do. And again, we're not dogmatic, and I think nobody can be dogmatic about energy. We just need to say, okay, how do we bite this elephant from our respective standpoint? And we believe that we have a lot to share on both sides. And you know, if you look, there is a very interesting MIT study that was made recently, and the MIT study presents exactly that. We cannot view each of us independently from one another. If we want to succeed and to move toward a very ambitious environmental goal, we need to view the systems in the world of the US Northeast, the Canadian Northeast, Quebec, New York, and New England, and all together, and then slice this pie and see what you want to do in New York, and what Maine wants to do, and what Mass wants to do. Those are respective dreams. When we sum up our dreams, it'll be a great place to live.
You're very poetic. You have a beautiful way of...
It's my poor English. I need to find words I can translate.
I'm talking about a bouquet and different, like I'm thinking very differently now about how I will describe and talk about energy, so I appreciate it. So two questions, and then I want to open it up to our audience to ask their questions. So to everyone out there, please start to send questions to the Q&A. So I'm going to make this assumption that this is less of a problem for Canada than it is for some other countries. But for some countries that rely or that have built out hydropower, there is concern about the impact of climate change on water levels. And that as water insecurity becomes a more significant issue in different parts of the world, that hydropower may in fact be somewhat threatened. One of my former students is in Chile, and she was sort of talking about some of the challenges that Chile is facing as some of their hydroelectric facilities are experiencing the negative side of climate change on water levels. Is that something that that is sort of thinking about sort of scenarios in the future? Again, I would assume based on the location of
this is it. Yeah, this is this is where we cannot compare what's happening in every country, because we have different realities. Actually. And we know that some of even the dams run of the river of certain rivers in the U.S. Northeast, the water level can vary quite a bit. Up north with the big reservoir and all that, there's two things. The biggest facilities that we have are up north. And again, scientifically wise, in the scale of time, we're still early in the climate change impacts. But what we actually see is, all things being equal, an increase of waterfall and water levels. So that's one important thing. The other thing is that because we are reservoir based for a large part of our production, we can actually manage year to year the reservoir and what we call the banking of electricity. So those facilities are very well located and very precious in their means. And again, it's not because Quebecers are more intelligent. It's because we had the capacity, we had the lakes. Our intelligence was in harnessing this energy and creating those reservoirs. So this is not, I'm not saying that this is not an issue and we're not looking at it. No, we're looking at it. But what we see right now is more on the positive side and more on some of the challenges side that comes with managing dams with higher water levels, by the way. So thanks for the question. It's not asked very often. I'm happy I was able to answer.
No, thank you. You were able to answer. And it was interesting as I was reading, something I think it was the EIA put out just recently that or maybe it was actually in the new BP, actually it was in the recent BP energy outlook, that the forecast is for an increase in hydropower overall, but at a slower pace than the last, for example, 2 decades, partially because of sort of slowdown in dam building in places like China, but that one of the issues, the threats was that of water levels. So a question before we move to the audience. So you've been in your CEO role a relatively short period of time, but can you sort of give us a vision for how you see Hydro Quebec over the next maybe 5 or 10 years, and what you'd like to sort of see from your end, and how your sort of leadership will leave an imprint?
Well, I've been in the job for 6 months, so I am still very much a rookie, and I drink by the fire hose, as you can imagine. But certainly one of the drivers, I elected to join HQ at the start of the pandemic, at the start of COVID. And I had a few drivers. And I would tell you that one of my biggest drivers to join HQ, aside the fact that, it's HQ, it's great, it's complex, it's got a great mission. I am an economist by education. And I am a fundamental believer that energy is the blood of the economy. A believer that infrastructures and energy are both precious. That finances, public and private, are under constraint. And if there is a time where humanity needs to pull together and pull on the neighboring competitive advantage of one and another, it's now. And for a long time, we have been operating in this neck of the continent in overcapacity. And it's easy to deregulate and to open up and to do everything when you are in overcapacity. But when the era of overcapacity tightens up, when transmission lines are full, when getting an environmental pathways that is logical and economical more needed than ever, we cannot act alone in our own parochial way. We can't. And nobody in our part of the continent can do everything by itself. Nobody. If we try that, we're going to hit a wall, and we will deprive our respective citizens and population of the right to access clean, affordable energy. So the challenge is to build a community of people, a community of communities, and to see how people can put their need and their resources, both energy-wise and infrastructure-wise, to pull up and raise to that challenge. And I think that if there is a part of the world that we can achieve that, should be here in New York and in Quebec, in our part of the continent. That's a belief. Now, how do we do that remains to be all attached, but that's the vision. That's the flag on the moon. And we're 20,000 people at HQ, men and women, looking forward to work more collaboratively with you and to thrive and to have fun and to have our universities talk more to one another, to have our students cross the border, visit one another, create research center. I think we have everything that we need. We just need to get going.
I love that, and I love your vision, and I truly believe, even just after a short period of time of talking to you today, that under your leadership you're going to make that happen. And we all have a role, and I love that sort of idea of community of communities. And there's, I'm sure, many of the people that are on in today's event are part of that larger community that are really committed and dedicated to building a more sort of clean and resilient energy system here in New York, and to work closely with Quebec. So I know we have a couple of questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and
fun part.
So we have a question here. Isn't the biggest obstacle more likely the lack of so I think this is going back to the question between about New York and Quebec in terms of how do we bring more hydropower into New York. Isn't the biggest obstacle more likely the lack of a mechanism to contract the resources? Why can't New York and Quebec run a transparent joint solicitation process to use competitive pressure to get the best deal for ratepayers and the environment?
You spoke a bit fast for my poor English, but I would tell you that having bilateral negotiations between Quebec and specific customers in New York is something that, to me, is very palatable. Very palatable. I don't know from my standpoint, but I may be speaking over my head here, and probably, but I don't know why we couldn't have a relationship to be able to sell power directly to the people in New York, going with all, you know, the appropriate distribution companies that you have there. Right now we have a line. The line is permitted, right, in New York, and we're doing the permitting on our side of the border to align with the line. Today, the issue is that we have a line to build, and this line, for us to be able to reach New York and have the ability to pay for the line that needs to be built, we need to have our energy recognized, maybe not as wind power in New York located locally, but certainly in a better fashion than fossil fuels generated electricity. If we need to build a new line and bring our energy to New York directly as that, it cannot happen. We cannot, nobody can pay, either you, the state, the customers, or whatever, we can pay for the line. There is an attribute to hydroelectricity, and we need to find the proper value of that hydroelectricity. Once this is done, then there is no mechanism that cannot be found for us to be extremely competitive. We will be competitive with any renewable energy source in your neck of the wood if we are recognized as renewable energy.
Great, thank you. So we have a question here. This is, I think, goes to sort of more broadly in terms of Canada, but also the role of Hydro Quebec. So the question is, what does Canada need to do to reach net zero by 2050? And how does Hydro Quebec plan to help with that?
Canada is a large country, and the reality of Canada is such that we are a patchwork. Quebec is blessed with hydroelectricity. Western Canada was blessed with oil and gas, and it created a lot of value for the country. And the provinces have thrived and built on that energy. So I think Canada is putting together a plan to work toward net zero. It's a long trajectory in my mind. And again, in Quebec, our head start, our starting point is better. We still have a lot to do. Frankly, I don't know if it's 2050. I don't know. And to me, it's difficult to see the path there. Not that it cannot be done. I don't see the steps that have been thought through to get there. When I look at Quebec, I certainly see a difference because of our starting point. And even then, it's quite a challenge. So we'll advance, will need to be resolved. And if I was to say something very rapidly on all that, I think that we need collectively, whether we are in the US or in Canada, to be talked about the change of behavior that will need to occur to get that as customers. We are the customers. We buy the products. We buy the energy. We make the decisions. Every day we make a consuming decision that has an impact on environment and GHG emissions. But we don't integrate that. And it's not priced. In Quebec, we price carbon, and we take great pride in pricing carbon. So some people will say it's a good thing or it's a bad thing, but that's a choice that Quebec made. And we're pricing carbon in an environment where we have hydroelectricity, but we pay more for our gasoline, and we pay more for natural gas to heat something, and we pay more in the overall food chain where we use carbon. We need to integrate the price that we have not been paying over the last decades. We've been using air and we've never paid for that, the atmosphere. And for decades, we've been using water and never paid for that. And now our forestry is paying for the water that we use, and we pay for water, and it's encompassed in the price. But using the atmosphere has never been paid for, never. So I think it needs to be done. I think carbon pricing in Canada, I cannot talk about the US, but I think carbon pricing is necessary.
Yeah, I know, and many people in the United States also agree. Many economists feel that it's critical, right? That we have to price carbon. There still remains this sort of almost this just immediate reaction that it's associated with immediately it's a tax, and the word tax in the United States oftentimes doesn't go over very well. But
you can net zero the tax. So if it's an additive tax, then this is something else. But if you say we're going to get taxes and we're going to reduce the other tax to compensate for that, then you start having a conversation. And the idea is to smooth the curve on that. But otherwise, we will always compare clean energy to a system that doesn't pay for what it is. So we will, it's like, I don't know how you say that in English, we call it la pierre de Sisyphe. Sisyphe stone, does that say something? No. It's like the image of somebody who's pulling a stone up a mountain and it falls back.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what's the name in English, but if we don't start having a price somewhere for that, it's going to be difficult.
No, I absolutely agree. And the one thing I'm kind of hopeful is that in the United States, there seems to be a very shift in the movement, getting closer to a carbon price, and that even many energy companies, even companies that, that their bread and butter is oil and gas, also want a price on carbon. So, I'm hoping that we'll see that sooner rather than later. So we have a fun question here.
Okay.
So could you please recommend your favorite books, blogs, YouTube channels, podcasts?
Oh, wow. I recommend
applications to learn more about renewable energy sources. So Sophie, this is like trying to get into, what's on your night table, if there are podcasts that you listen to, if there's certain people that you follow on Twitter that sort of help to inform the way that you're thinking about renewable energy. We want to, this person wants to know, tell us, how to.
Well, I am not, I hope I will not disappoint you. I am not very much into reading business management books. Actually, I don't resonate. I would, the last book I gave to a friend, I gave the book to a friend about a couple of weeks ago, was Conversations with RBG. And that's a book that I didn't know your Supreme Court judge that well. I knew her, she was an inspiration to me, but the conversations were helpful. Actually, I have to tell you that before joining Hydro Quebec, I was in a sabbatical, and the plan was for me to be in a sabbatical for 2 years. And I was supposed to teach and to go to a university in Paris and to teach in Montreal. That was the plan. And then pandemic arrived and I elected to do something else. But I am writing a book right now. And the book I am writing is about the parallel we have to do between our life and managing a veggie patch. Management of a team, management of a company, management of a veggie patch, and management of the transition we have to do is all the same. So if you happen to have just a small veggie patch, take attention to that, and you will realize that the mistake you do are the same mistake you do in management and the same mistake we do when thinking about energy transition. So it was a fun question. I hope it was a fun answer.
It's a great answer, and I'm really excited and looking forward to your book. Do you mind me asking, how far along are you? Is it?
I am in. There will be 12 chapters, and 3 are bottled. So yeah,
it's really fantastic.
No, and it's all about the planning. It's all about making mistakes. It's all about infrastructure and seedings, and what you need to do every year and what you need to think through many years in advance. And it's all about, you know what? It's all about the fixed costs compared to the variable cost. And energy utilities have been judged on their often lack of well-managing variable cost. But utilities should be viewed as in their way of managing the fixed costs and the long term and the 40 years amortization projects. That if today we can have this conversation is because people 40 years ago, 50 years ago, built those facilities and those capacities that will be used for 100 years, will be amortized for 40 years. And had they been short-sighted, none of this would be there today, and this conversation wouldn't be there. So how do we think through the future, but get things done so that our kids can be by the side of your facilities in your neck of the wood and say 15 years from now, it's great to be a human being.
Wow, that is so fantastic. And I am so grateful to have had this chance to speak with you today. And
same here. I wish I were there. I'm frustrated. And I look forward.
No. Can we just say one thing? Because what you were saying earlier brought me back to a colleague that I have, Christian Bush, who leads our global economy concentration, who recently wrote a book called The Serendipity Mindset. But one of the things that he's been speaking about is sort of how we handle uncertainty and how we make the best of different situations. And I was just sort of struck by how your plans, you know, to teach, to be in Paris, to be in Quebec, how those plans got, you know, dramatically altered because of the COVID crisis. But yet now you're sitting here as the CEO of Hydro Quebec, having this conversation, putting forward what I feel is a really important, dynamic, transformative vision. And so as I said, you know, I'm sure that you would have had a great time being in Paris, and we would have loved to have had you here in New York in person, but really just moved by and inspired by what you have started to do and what you will do. So as I said, really, really happy to have had this hour with you, an important part of Climate Week. And thank you.
I thank you. You've been very patient with me. I'm sorry for my poor English, but it comes from the heart. And I know that our delegation in New York, Catherine, is close to many people of you. She knows a lot. She knows more about Hydro Québec than I do, and certainly share the passion. Our government, our employees, our citizens embrace you all. And please view Quebec's energy and capacity as your own ability to reach your own ambition. I wish you to be safe. We cross fingers for what we hope not will be a second wave. I look forward to meeting you, Caroline, and you all. And in the meantime, be safe. Thank you for your time and invitation today.
Thank you so very much. And thank you all for joining today, and definitely participate in events that are happening this week. The Quebec office here in New York is doing so much. So sign up for their events, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay. So thank you so much, Sophie. It really was great.
Ciao.
All right, everyone. Bye.